The other night, as part of our communal Yom HaShoah commemoration, we heard from Ilya Garari, who, speaking through his son Alex, spoke of fleeing Nazis and life under Soviet rule. And one of the themes that kept coming up was anti-Semitism. Not just, he says, as he grew older, he realized among uneducated individuals, but no less virulent, in fact, sometimes more so, among educated classes. Of course, this is instructive, that education is not the solution to ending racism and bigotry. Sometimes it is, and oftentimes it is not. But also, what was it that drove it? And in part, from all of his stories, it seems, people were looking for a scapegoat, somebody to blame a bad situation on, just as the Nazis would use Jews as a scapegoat, and just as the Soviets would use Jews as a scapegoat. People often, to explain difficulties in their lives, look for a scapegoat, and this is relevant in part because, one, part of how humans seem to often operate, regardless of education or culture. Two, it's in the Torah. Right? In the Torah this week in Acharei is the Yom Kippur ritual, which involves a scapegoat, that people confess their sins over a goat that's sent off in the wilderness. And the ritual is meant to cleanse the people, give them a feeling of being cleansed of their sins. Just like when you blame somebody for problems in your life or in society, that scapegoat makes you feel better, you feel cleansed, because it's not really your fault, it's their fault. People do this, obviously, historically, towards Jews. People do it, the left does it to the right does it to the left. People do it towards racial minorities, people do it to ethnic minorities, religious minorities, people do it towards immigrants, people do it towards majorities, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Asian. People get blamed for things that aren't in fact their fault, but they're scapegoated. The feeling a negative action is pinned on them, and then the person doing that pinning feels better. It happened, I noticed, at Rutgers University last week. There's a group of people leaving a pro-Palestinian rally, who then called members of a historically Jewish fraternity baby killers and terrorists. Now, members of a Jewish fraternity at Rutgers actually baby killers? Unlikely. Scapegoating makes people feel better, and it's something we have to guard ourselves against. Education doesn't always solve it. The fact that things happen at universities tells us that in part. We're supposed to both ground ourselves in the real world, remember how things happen and why they happen, and also in a faith that we can become better people, and we don't need to blame others for it. The brilliance of that scapegoat ritual in the Talmud, in the Torah and in the Talmud, is that we own our own sins, and we don't blame it on somebody else. We should be on guard against scapegoating, both when others do it and when we ourselves do it, and learn that we're supposed to rise above. Shabbat Shalom.